welcoming all our viewers from online and on the broadcast to today's International Affairs program, broadcasting live from Dhaka's SATV studio. But before I begin this discussion for today, I want to introduce all my panelists. We have to my left Major Nasiruddin Ahmed, of course retired, and he has appeared on this show on multiple occasions. And of course we have our geopolitical correspondent Norman Floyd Barnes, who joins us from Washington, D.C. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. The White House is making remarks such as acquiring Greenland under some suspicious circumstances. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. We know that Venezuela has been going through some rough waters in the last 3-4 days. I want to understand how the United States feels about Greenland. Of course, there's tension between United States and Denmark because Denmark is the authority ruling over Greenland. I want to understand how Norman Floyd Barnes feels about this issue.
Greetings again from Washington, D.C. today. It appears that Congress was briefed by the Trump administration yesterday on components of this plan. There's a plan by the United States that's been in place for some period of time for the acquisition of Greenland. Greenland sits as a strategical location for the Trump administration on the new, what we call the new sphere of interest. Russia, China, and the United States are in discussions about how to move forward for the next, what I call the New World Order. That will consist of different spheres. And the America sphere will be tipped off by Greenland, and basically will extend all the way down to Argentina. You notice we have conversations and we are helping Argentina. That is for a purpose. The issue with Greenland is Greenland holds 25 of the 34 precious minerals and earth elements that is necessary for our economy and the use of technology. This will allow the United States to circumvent Taiwan and China in regards to the domination of resources. There's been conversations with Russia and the United States, previous conversations about the issue with Venezuela. This has been in plan for a long time. Russia has conceded that they will back off and not get involved with issues of the Western Hemisphere under the what we call Monroe Document 2.2.0, if the United States will back off on Ukraine and the issues in Europe. So that's number one. Two, China is also in the process of moving forward with their period of interest, and they have interest in South America. They have interest in the polar cap area because of the rare minerals, and they have issues in mining and getting resources again to basically to contain the dominance on technology resources needed in the world. The U.S. is in the process of using Greenland as a very strategic location, both military and technology and commerce-wise, to control the Western Hemisphere. They want to put bases there. They want to have basic control of the rare minerals, which is below the ice, that will allow the United States to control the market. Yes, there's also oil below the surface. So right now we're looking at a very situation where the United States is prepared. They announced yesterday to Congress that they want to purchase Greenland. The second option, of course, is the military approach. And the third option is basically come to agreement with Greenland, which consists of between 30 and 50,000 people, to basically provide services, technology, transportation, infrastructure, whatever, in conjunction with allowing the United States to put bases there and to operate there, and allowing the government to work as an independent country, nation, with the support of the United States. So all these three options are on the table right now, and it appears that the United States is hell-bent on making this happen.
Right. Thank you, Norman Flood Barnes. I understand that you were assessing the situation and you were saying that the whole approach for Venezuela was remaining or pertaining towards oil, while in the meanwhile, the whole approach towards Greenland is rare earth minerals. I want to come back in the studio with Dr. Nasir. I'm sure that you were hearing Norman Floyd Barnes' assessment of the issue. It's only been 7 days of the year. And by the 7 days, the entire geopolitical hemisphere has changed. We see how Nicolas Maduro and his spouse has been captured by the U.S. military forces. The operation did not last more than a couple of minutes, and he was taken in by the USS Iwo Jima amphibious carrier. And the latest news regarding this issue was Nicolas Maduro pleading not guilty at a New York court. So I want to ask you how the geopolitical hemisphere has changed. The year has begun with acts of aggression. How do you feel?
Thank you, Pranto, and warm greetings to our co-panelist David Norman from Washington and my dear viewers. You have very rightly said that all on a sudden, at the beginning of the second quarter of the century, we had just finished the first quarter of the 21st century on last 31st December,
right.
And beginning of the second quarter of the century really started, I should say, not very well. It was a sudden blow onto the total peace process in the entire world. We had been hoping that there will be end to the war in Ukraine, there will be some peace in Gaza, and ultimately we may move towards some peace process globally. But this particular sudden blow on Venezuela, it totally changed our mindset, and I should say have shaken the whole world, as you have rightly corrected out. So, in one sense, this particular attack was not unpredicted. You know, from 2018 to 2022, there had been a wave of leaning towards the socialism in some of the countries around America. And this particular movement was known as the second pink wave or the second pink movement or tide. And this from Venezuela, Chavez Hugo, from Brazil, Lula, from Honduras, Evo, from Bolivia, Rafael, and from Cristina and Néstor from Argentina.
Yes.
Though they all had been quite frequently talking about oppression of the Western Bloc towards some of the countries like Iran and other countries which were hostile to USA. So
right.
That was the time from since 2022, it was quite obvious that going to be something in some of the countries of this nature. And this particular capture of some president or his spouse or his associates is not new for the purpose of USA. You know, Panama incident that happened,
Yes.
and many of the, in Cuba also they tried but could not succeed. So there had been attempt many a times like this, and particular USA is militarily very expert on this issue. If you talk about the killing of Laden or taking him out from Pakistan or rescuing the hostages in Iran, some of the nurses and other in the embassy of Iran. So this sort of sudden attack by the US team, especially the mariners, is something not new. The way Trump, as you have said, that there had been night operation and it lasted for a few minutes. Though Donald Trump is taking heavy claim that it was a very successful military operation, unseen, unheard in the history of military, but as a soldier, professionally I was a soldier, I should say this is no credit in this. In the hours of darkness you start bombing, and suddenly a country which is not prepared for a war at all you are capturing the president of that country from a particular place or a particular secured position or key point installation.
Right.
That doesn't give any credit to the American army in that way, to be very honest. Had it been you could capture the North Korean president from that particular place, I should have given you the credit. If you could capture Iranian president, I could give you the that credit. If you could launch a war against the Russia or the China, you could say yes, USA is showing its muscle or its power.
Right.
Now, capturing a particular country like Venezuela, and after that you are terming that its oil field will be controlled by you, that means that it is totally a unprofessional, unethical, and I should say unexpected move from a giant country like USA. Now you see this particular attack justifies attack of Russia on Ukraine. It
yes.
justifies China's claim on Taiwan. It justifies whatever has happened in Gaza by Israel is justified. So tomorrow there may be any other small country being captured by some other country. Even I will not be surprised if Bangladesh is under attack from some of the big powers for any reason. Just a hypothesis.
Right.
That everything is justified in this world if USA is backing up. So that is the scenario in the world now.
You know, 3.5 years ago, the Ukraine-Russia war had started, and not only so, the claim of China on Taiwan is still there. Giving rhetoric remarks have come up from the Japanese Prime Minister. But I want to focus on Venezuela. I believe this is the very first attempt in exploitation of the Venezuelan resources. I want to come to Norman Floyd Barnes. I have an interesting question. The US President Donald Trump said that the interim authorities in Venezuela had agreed to transfer between 30 and 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the US to be sold at market price. Of course, the president added that the Energy Secretary Chris Wright had been asked to execute the plan immediately, with the oil to be transported on storage ships directly to the US unloading docks. I want to understand, given this latest news, how Norman Floyd Barnes assesses the matter, given that it's only been 3 days since the capture of the leader of Venezuela and the orders for exploitation of its oil are already on the way. So, if it's not now, when will the US courts take the matter into their cases, the fact that this is conducting some kind of crime, because it is a sovereign nation and their sovereignty has been questioned? Norman Floyd Barnes.
Yes, I'm going to be very frank. Right now, the U.S. courts, Congress, and the majority of the world is 20 years behind what's happening right now. I said that because a process is being played in place and that transcends international law. It's involved a transactional administration that has put things in place with and agreed to by the global leaders, and as no one is in a position to stop it. The courts has very little impact on exactly what's going on. We have a movement that is in process, and the courts can say yes or no, or you need to stop this, but it has already happened. We have an agreement with Venezuela. These plans is put in place. They just had to remove the top. Talk to the government, which they consider illegitimate, but still they can manipulate them through the new president that's in there, through intimidation, that if you don't follow what I say, your fate is going to be worse than Mandela. It's going to be worse than the former president. So they are pushed into a situation where they have to concede that we have all 50, they want 50, 50 million barrels of oil is need to come to the United States. The United States will take the profits from that and share the profits with the people of Venezuela. Who are the people of Venezuela? Well, that is determination by the Trump administration, who and how and what's going on. Right now, the blockade has produced a situation where all of the oil tankers in Venezuela are full of oil. They can't move. They can't leave. In 2 weeks, unless this oil is moved, the country is going to go into bankruptcy. They know this, what's going on. So the United States has conveniently offered them an option. We will buy the oil from you. We will sell the oil from you, and we will give you a portion of the oil. But we can control how the funds and everything goes. So this is part of the manipulation. This is part of the control. So we don't have to, as the United States, put boots on the ground because our weapon is access to the oil. You have something that you have to sell desperately to keep your economy going on. We're giving you an option. The option is going to be through us. We want you to stop. The next thing is we want you to stop your relationship with China, Russia, North Korea, and other places in terms of oil. We want you to go through us. That's a condition of us allowing you to remain in office. If you don't like it, we can fix that. We can take you out of office. We can do horrible things to you. So it's to your best interest. If you want to stay relevant for now, you have to follow the new rules of the game. So basically, we're looking at a bully coming in, taking over the neighborhood, and telling you what you can and cannot do. I don't know how long this is going to last. There will be feedback, there will be pushback, and there will be conflicts dealing with this. Right now, the United States is going to get its will and way because they have the upper hand militarily and economically. So this is what's happening right now in Venezuela. The states want to control who and where and the profits of that.
Of course, that's quite important. As we understand, there are some news regarding Chevron. Of course, Chevron has started a fleet of at least 11 tankers scheduled to arrive in Venezuela throughout this entire month as an American embargo continues on this nation following a recent U.S. military operation. This is, of course, according to Bloomberg. The ships are headed to the Venezuelan government-controlled ports of Jose and Bajo Grande to load crude oil destined exclusively for refineries in the U.S. And I was hearing Norman Floyd Burns as he was saying that Venezuela must now choose its strategic alliances, whether to stay on board with Russia, China, Iran and the other oil-producing nations, or if not, being controlled by the United States of America. My question to you, is Venezuela a newly annexed territory of the United States of America, given the fact that the king or the supreme leader or the head of state or whatever title you give him has been taken away by the United States forces?
Yes, apparently it seems so that for at least for next few years, there will be a total control of U.S. authority over this Venezuela, and particularly their well fields and the stock of the mineral resources, whatever they have, that will be controlled by the U.S. companies. Already those they have their footsteps there. They established their footsteps there before. This Chevron you have talked about, and there are many other companies which are involved in particular petroleum extraction business. So they already had their business there before also, and they had their establishment. But particularly, as I said about the second wave of the pink tide, because of some leniency towards the socialism, there had been some controversy, or they had been in back foot, these American companies. And as Donald Trump has first declared that America first, that means did not mean only America first in its own country. America first, he probably, or now by this now it is established, he established that America first everywhere. Let it be Venezuela, let it be Greece or any other land. So first of all, he will be looking for the interest of the business community wherever they are in the world. So from that context, you can say America will be dominating the Venezuela's policy, especially policy regarding the mineral resources for next few years. Now, question comes, as you said, that what is the options Venezuela has? First of all, you know, what is happening in Iran now, that there is a total chaos going on in
Protests
the entire capital, and you know that the people, the general people, they cannot buy commodities. So if the people cannot buy commodities, definitely they will be hostile, and that is the turning point for the big powers to impose some decision onto the government through the mass movement of the general people.
Right.
So that is probably another equation going to happen in Venezuela. People at the end will cry for some peace negotiation or try for some food, for some daily commodities, and government will be compelled to negotiate with the US. This is one. But I am afraid that this particular type of movement by the USA that may generate again the arms race. You know, now if Korea try to justify that, you know, why do I go for the nuclear power plants, or if the Iran they takes over this program again. I know they had been doing this nuclear extension program quite secretly under the embargo of the international community.
Right.
Now it is quite clear that nobody will bother about the international community or whatever the international pressure is. They will say, if you can do something, do it in Venezuela, don't come to Iran. If you want to do something, do it in Greece, not in North Korea. So there will be again arms race again, and particularly this production of nuclear warheads may increase. That is the danger for the world.
Lovely observation regarding this situation that we have. Of course, it does not define how the entire world will process this issue that has happened in the last 7 days of this year. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a short commercial break. Do stay with us as we are going to bring you more updates.
Club Limited, Mirpur 10, Dhaka.
কি এমন জিনিস যেটা সব লোকে খায়, ছোটরা খেলে পরে কেঁদে মায়ের কাছে যায়, বৃদ্ধ লোক খেলে পরে মাথায় দেয় হাত, যুবক যুবতীরা খেলে পরে এদিক ওদিক তাকায়?
ছেড়ে দে শয়তান, ছেড়ে দে, দেহ পেলে আমার মন পাবি না, ছেড়ে দে।
কোন ফলের বীজ নেই বলো দেখি দাদা, বলতে না পারলে হবে তুমি গাধা।
মন্দিরা চক্রবর্তী কার সাথে প্রেম করছে?
আমি এখন মা হতে চলেছে।
চিনেছি তোমারে আকারে প্রকারে, দিনের আলো রাতের আধারে।
কোন বাসায় শুধু দুজন থাকে, দরজা জানালা ছাদ কিছুই থাকে না?
পা, পায়ের নুপুর, ছন্দ,
মনে হচ্ছে কি ছু দিয়ে জাদু মন্ত্র করছে।
এক্স্যাক্টলি, পায়রে নুপুর আমার।
অরিক্স স্পেশাল সেলিব্রিটি শো তারকার ঝলক দেখবেন প্রতি শুক্রবার রাত 9:30
ভালোবাসা একবার তুমি বউ কইয়া ডাকো।
হ্যাঁ গো,
আর কত দূর?
আরে আমি তো ফিডের গাড়ির লগে।
তোমার গরু হাঁস মুরগি মাছ তো অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে।
কি কও, অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে? কেডা? হাঁস মুরগি।
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs. I'm your host, Shamsul Alam Pantho, and alongside we have Dr. Nasiruddin Ahmed in the studio and our SATV's geopolitical correspondent, Norman Floyd Barnes, in Washington, D.C. But I want to begin with Mr. Nasir in the studio. I know we were talking about this oil dependency between various countries, and there is a pact between the US and Saudi Arabia from 1973, which had ended last year. And of course, this raises question on how the United States is going to keep dependency on this crude oil model that their entire economy runs on, given the fact that innovation and technology have gone to a point where dependency on such elements or such crude oil is not necessary, given the fact that today we see the first world nation attacking a nation like Venezuela. So I want to understand how you felt regarding this issue.
Okay, back in 1973, this idea of exchanging petroleum, crude oil and other petroleum lubricants, etc., from the Middle East was termed as the petrodollar. That means if you want to export something from to any country or any other country trying to buy something from the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, they should use US dollars only. They used to print the previously dependency was on gold. From 1973 onwards, there was dependency on the US currency, that is the dollar, and that is nothing to be deposited, only the printing of the US notes, that was the key issue. And back in 1975, there had been an agreement between the Saudi Arabia when the Henry Kissinger was the president. There was an agreement between the Saudi Arabia king and the USA authority that there will be a 50 years negotiation or the agreement that exchange should be done by US dollars. But once it terminated on 9th of June this year, that the Prince of Saudi Arabia, Salman, he did not agree to take it further. Rather, he was, number one, he has a vision known as 2030, which straightway outlines that dependency on crude oil, as you have rightly said, should be gradually reduced because technology is advancing, renewable energy is very popular nowadays, and especially countries like China, they are aggressively marketing the vehicles and other machineries which can run by the renewable energy, even the batteries and other things. And you know, the Chinese nowadays, they have already switched producing heavy machineries and construction equipment, now bulldozer excavators, those who consume fuel to a large extent. Those sort of construction materials are also being produced to be geared up by the renewable battery and other renewable energy. So that is the reason Saudi Arabia did not agree to the American proposal that all these sorts of business of petroleum should be done in exchange of US dollar. Rather, he was looking for a Chinese currency, Russian currency, and some other exchangeable currency, even the euro. So America now has a very critical situation with the standard of the US dollar. If America is an energy hungry country. Every individual needs a car to maintain its life.
Of course, that is very important. I want to ask the same question to Norman. Mr. Norman Floyd Barnes, you were hearing Dr. Nasir saying that America is a very energy hungry country. But if you come to the reality today, Venezuela's oil is going to be coming to the US ports. And not only so, the US has a precarious position towards the north as well as in Latin America. According to Caroline Levitt, the White House spokesperson, she had said the president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal. And of course, utilizing the US military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. She was definitely implying the situation towards Greenland. I want to understand how you felt and your closing remarks for the show today. Of course, it is a very crucial time in geopolitics and global governance. I want to understand your remarks.
Yes, thank you for the time. In summary, the United States is now implementing a plan that they put in place, utilizing the best interests of America. And the best interests of America is going to be utilized through the Monroe Doctrine 2, which basically they are going to look out for the interests of the United States within a certain sphere. The sphere of interest will be the Western Hemisphere. And basically they have consulted and talked with both China. What they're saying is, we'll allow you to do anything you want to do in terms of the Western Hemisphere as long as you leave my area alone. Basically, China has Asia. We're talking about Taiwan, but we're talking about Asia and other parts. Russia has Ukraine, and we're really talking about Europe. And basically, so if everybody stays in their own pocket or their own section, everything is okay. We will take note that there will be conflicts and issues within these areas, but that belongs to you. Whatever spirit, whatever you have, we will not interfere. We want to let that resolve itself. and you will be controlling that. The end of the day is that they want the three spears want to have a situation where everything happened in the area, they will have total control over the outcome. If you have a conflict in Greece, well, they want to be able to, Russia wants to be able to basically oversee that and allow the Greeks and whatever they resolve the issue. But you will have to answer to the hand. The hand will be the person who controls the resources. If you control the resources, you control the energy, you control the area. So the military is just utilize the military to impose our will. But at the end of the day, if you don't have food, water, shelter, and resources, you can't exist. You can have an army. Ukraine is a good example of that. But basically, if you don't have resources, supplies, and equipment, that army has a very limited scope that you can deal with. In the end, what resources you have, what bargaining chips you have. And right now, the three big superpowers are basically trying to control what happens in these areas and basically determine the future of the world. So we're looking at a shifting and a new change in terms of world order to basically come to a point what we call peace. That is the only peace. The peace is basically what interests we can hold and maintain. As long as you follow these guidelines, just like we're doing in Venezuela, give me the oil, give me this, and we control what's going on, we will not interfere with your local matters. But at the end of the day, we want you to know we are in control. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Norman Floyd Barnes, who is joining us from Washington, D.C. I really appreciate your analysis regarding the worldwide issues here on this program. I hope you have a lovely day ahead. I want to come into the studio with Dr. Nasiruddin Ahmed. You were hearing how Norman was telling about if you have the resources, we want control of that. If you look at Greenland, almost all of European allies, especially from Canada and all the European allies had rallied behind Greenland, saying that the Arctic island belongs to its people, following this renewed threat by US President Donald Trump to take over this Danish territory. Exactly what kind of rare earths minerals are they looking for in Greenland, and what is the strategic outcome, given the fact in the last 1 year, Donald Trump has been the cause of ceasefire or brokeraging ceasefires across the entire world. Excuse me, if you look at our region, we have the India-Pakistan conflict going on for more or less 2 weeks. It was, of course, in the helm of a terrorist attack in India's Pahalgam. If you look at Ukraine-Russia war, it has been continuing for quite some time and is still continuing even after desperate attempts for ceasefires. And if you look at Thailand and Cambodia, there was a time where it had a ceasefire and then they began again, and a second ceasefire has been put into place. 2025 has been the year of ceasefire. Up until now, in 2026, it's been the year for war, year for calling the head of state, the president, the commander-in-chief. I do not know what kind of military book they are playing. However, it is a very dangerous time. We are not sure if this would spark World War III, given the fact that if a nation, a leader of a nation like United States can capture the leader of a nation, of a sovereign nation in its own outskirts, Venezuela, it actually sets the floor for other nations to think alike. And if you really take that into account, we can see Russia's position on Ukraine and China's claims to its forgotten island, Taiwan. So today, the entire geopolitical framework has been shaken. Everyone has forgotten what the UN Charter actually stood for. Yes. So I want to understand how you felt, given that you do have knowledge in military doctrine.
Yeah, so that is very unfortunate, as you have rightly said, that the UN being the highest or the apex body to ensure peace in the world. You know that after the Second World War, this United Nations came into being, and the solo or the major role of the United Nations as expected by the world community was to establish peace. But what happened after that, there had been a Cold War going on for a long time, and after this disintegration of Soviet Union, there was a unipolar world where the America had been dominating, and after that, once China came up, parallelly Russia also geared up its military strength. and thereby again the world is now, you can say, USA versus rest of the world. The geopolitical scenario is something like that. US said that this 2026 or at the last part of the 2025 had been the time or era of negotiation between the countries, and there had been signal of ending the war. But in other sense, you can say that is the era, or that is the time of US aggressive attitude in the entire world. If you plot the spots in the world map, you can, as you rightly said, they have stepped into India-Pakistan affairs, they have stepped into Thailand and Cambodia affairs. That means the South and Southeast Asia, they have their interests and they have directly got involved. If you talk about Gaza, that means in the Middle East and the Arab world, they are already involved. Now in the Venezuela and the other countries around Venezuela, they have directly involved. They have already threatened the countries like you can I can name the few of the countries of that region that they are going to capture, Mexico and Colombia and other, and they have directly given the threat to that. And one interesting part is, you see that he is telling that it is because of the drug dealing, or that they are involved in the drug
He's
business.
Practically forgot that after 3 days of the capture.
But at the same time, he has released the ex-president of the Honduras, Hernandez, who was jailed for 45 years. Was jailed for 45 years for similar cause, therefore the drug business and the syndicate, and he has been released by President Donald Trump recently. He is releasing someone and again capturing someone else on the same issue, and also threatening some other president also. So this is the, you can say, this is the era of US dominance over other countries, and I am afraid President Donald Trump may upset the US Constitution even. He said that he may go for the presidency for the third term, which is not as allowed in the Constitution, and not supported in anywhere in the history of the USA, long history of the USA. So he might be planning for that. Otherwise, suddenly a movement like this and threatening to step into Iran or capturing Greece, which is very well known, as you have rightly said, this is the autonomous land of Holland. So that is the part of, again, European Union and also the part of NATO force. Then if a NATO country gets under attack, what is the
NATO
treaty?
will be broken.
NATO will be broken, or NATO will have to go against the USA. First of all, it will be broken. Then it will have to go against the USA. Or there will be, as I said, they will concentrate on individual security of the countries. So these sort of peace-living countries that in the European Union and the NATO alliances, they will have to unnecessarily expand on military built-up. So again, that is a bad signal for the world community, and that is a good signal for the US business community, those who are producing the armaments. So that is how the world, the balance of the trade and the peace process, or the expected peace in different countries, is going to be jeopardized.
Of course, a very lovely commentary by you. I want to ask a very short question before we can proceed towards a break. Usually in the Iran-Israel conflict, we've seen how the US forces had supported Israel and was not conducting a neutral balance or a neutral stance. Do you think the likes of Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, do you think they share the same kind of genocidal ideology? What is your take?
Genocide, in one sense, will be thoroughly condemned in the entire America. Maybe there is genocide in the Gaza, which was quite overlooked by some of the European countries, Western countries. But at the same time, we should not forget that there had been protests in the American universities, especially the young Americans. They did not like genocide. So if Donald Trump dares to carry out some genocide somewhere, that will be very crucial for his home, from his home front as well. There will be tremendous. Otherwise, economically, you can say America is not in a good shape now. There had been a lot of crisis going on in the American own economy also, especially the employment and the other pension benefits and other health sector. Everything is under now quite pressure.
And just a couple of weeks ago, it was under the longest government shutdown, federal government shutdown. Thank you for your observation regarding this issue. Ladies and gentlemen, we must proceed for a short commercial break, but after the break, we have some more updates to share with you all.
আরে ওগো মতি গতি দেখা মনে হইতাছে এসএফএম ছাড়া কিছুই খাইবো না।
হ্যাঁ গো, এসএফিটার খবর ওরা জানলো কেমনে?
আরে ভালো জিনিসের খবর ছড়াতে কি আর মাইক লাগে? খবর ভাসে বাতাসে বাতাসে।
আরে দেখো, এসএফিটার জাদু।
সম্পূর্ণ নিজস্ব তত্ত্বাবধানে বিশেষজ্ঞদের সমন্বয়ে প্রস্তুত হয় এসএফিডের পশু খাদ্য। অত্যাধুনিক প্রযুক্তিতে তৈরি এই পশু খাদ্য যেমন নিরাপদ তেমনি স্বাস্থ্যকর। এসএ ফিড, নিরাপদ ফিড, স্বাস্থ্যকর প্রোটিন। এসএ অ্যাগ্রোফিডস লিমিটেড একটি এসএ গ্রুপ অফ কোম্পানিজের প্রতিষ্ঠান।
Grand Palace, 5-star chain hotel, Zinda Bazaar, Sylhet. Local and international cuisines. Exclusive banquet hall for all events. 5-star luxurious rooms and suites with bulletproof glass. Fiberglass swimming pool. Relaxing spa. Well-equipped gym. Experience panoramic beauty at SATV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to International Affairs. And in the studio, we have Dr. Nasiruddin Ahmed. That we were talking about Venezuela's oil exploitation by the U.S. We were also talking about how the U.S. stands regarding Greenland, regarding rare earth minerals. So, however, during the last segment of this program, I want to talk about a different line of questioning or a different continent. We can look at Middle East. When we talk about crude oil, we do not necessarily think about the Latin Americas, but we do think about Middle East, because we understand that Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and all of these nations combined have huge oil deposits, crude oil deposits. But as of last year, we've seen a great war breakout, a 12-day war breakout between Israel and Iran, in which we more or less have heard the Strait of Hormuz becoming very important to this discussion, because every now and then it is controlled. It is the world's most critical oil choke point, and roughly about 20% of global oil trade is going through this narrow corridor daily. So Iran's strategic positions include one of these issues is because in the past we have seen US trying to destabilize Iran, and of course oust its leader Ali Mossadegh back in the day. And there is a story of how the Shahs of Iran used to rule Iran, and how it was a very openly free kind of country. And then in the 1979, we've seen the Iranian Revolution happening, Islamic Revolution taking place, and of course theocracy had become the type of governance. Today, Iran recognizes this issue. Just a couple of days ago, Masoud Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, had said that we are in some kind of retaliation with Western powers and the Western world, Western hemisphere. Today, Venezuela is attacked and its oil being plundered. And whether or not Iran will have some heightened tensions in the Strait of Hormuz is a matter of question, matter of time. I want to understand how you feel about this.
Okay. Now the world again is quite unstable, I should say, basing on the Venezuela issue in one side. Another is the Russian war. You know, yesterday also there had been attack on the oil reserves of Russia and electrical, some of the power plants like that. And side by side, Iran is now under tremendous pressure, and it's not a foreign country which is got involved like the Venezuela or Ukraine. It is its own people, and reason being is the total instability in the market, and that is again based on the embargo being imposed by the Western power onto Iran in regard to the export of the oil products or the petroleums. And Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, as you have said, that is very, very important geopolitically, because as you said, 20% of the oil being exported through this strait, and many of the countries like the Oman and other Gulf countries, they are also dependent on Hormuz Strait as regard to their export of the countries. Mineral resources, and if there is any blockade onto the Hormuz, there will be tremendous pressure onto the oil market, and I think I will not be surprised if next step is to block the Hormuz Strait and put tremendous pressure onto the Iran, so that the present government of the Iran or the Islamic government of the Iran is totally cuts a sorry figure, and the America-backed power or America-backed political power takes over in Iran. That will not be surprised. May not be a regime like Shah, but again, I will not be surprised what happened in Afghanistan. Right. Hamid Karzai suddenly came up. So I don't know whether America has created another Hamid Karzai for Iran, who will again come into being and again show some new dimension of the scenario. But one thing we should not forget, that Iran has sustained a revolution. They have not been consuming or tolerating the Western red eyes, and in 1979 revolution has proved that, number one. Number two, the Iran, very well part of the Muslim community, there are divisions between Shia and Sunnis, but at the end of the day they are the Muslims. So there will be again retaliation in many of the Muslim countries, and Iran can very well capable, may not fight heavily against the USA, but they can very well ignite the non-stakeholders in many countries. So there will be proxy war. There will be proxy war backed by the Iranis, because they may not have that much of strength in their own country, in their own economy, but we should not undermine their capacity of igniting the political forces which can anytime take up arms and go against the interest of the USA. That can be another dimension. And you know, if Iran comes under this sort of embargo, they have very good ties with some of the big powers. So they will definitely call upon Russia, China, or even India. They have very good ties with India also. Right. So they will definitely look for some assistance to these big powers, and at the end of the day, there will be, as I said, there will be a USA versus rest of the world. This scenario may go like that also. And if you talk about the Greece, yes, rare earth is again a prime need for the USA now. For that, they have also looked towards China. Looked towards Pakistan as well. You know, the Pakistan, the chief of the army staff, yes, he was welcomed by Donald Trump
on multiple occasions.
On multiple occasions, and they have taken lunch together, which is not a normally customary. And again, as I said, that once the blockade will be imposed on Hormuz to stop Iran, there will be crisis, and that crisis will be managed by the USA well companies like Chevron, and that's why this is maybe the prelude to that the Venezuela has been captured, and this well resources of Venezuela, this is a very large stock, you know, we all know it. And you have rightly pointed out that some of the empty tankers have already moved towards Venezuela's ports. So I think that is that could be a prelude to some embargo on Iran, and to counter that crisis, Venezuela now is being invested by the USA.
A very beautiful analysis of the worldwide geopolitical scenario. I must thank Major Dr. Nasir Uddin Ahmed, for being here, for your valuable insights, for your commentary, and of course Norman Floyd Barnes, who had earlier on joined us from Washington DC. Ladies and gentlemen, as I draw closer, today is January the 7th, and of course there is very important message today in history as well. In 1979, Vietnamese troops seized the Cambodia capital of Phnom Penh, toppling the brutal regime of Pol Pot and his Khmer Rouge. That's it for today. I shall see you all tomorrow.